Imagine a neighborhood where the grass is always trimmed, sidewalks are clean, the clubhouse is buzzing with weekend activity, and your neighbors seem to share the same idea of what looks good. You move into your dream home, excited about the perks of community living. But underneath that polished exterior lies an invisible governance structure that shapes everything about how you live: the Homeowners Association, the HOA. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Larry Fleischman, your Southern California real estate broker, and I record these videos every week to help you understand more about real estate and help guide you through the buying and selling process. And I greatly appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel. That would help me reach more people with this information. Today I'm taking you on a walk alongside two families, the Rodriguezes and the Patel family, as they navigate life under an HOA. Through their stories, we're going to explore the advantages and drawbacks of HOA living and try to help you understand and decide whether it's a good fit for your lifestyle. What draws people to HOAs? Well, let's start off with the Rodriguez family. They are a young couple in their early 30s. They've got 2 kids. They just closed on a home in a planned community governed by an HOA. When they toured the neighborhood, they were really impressed by the pristine landscaping, a sparkling community pool, walking trails, and a real sense of order. You know, the marketing advertised that many exterior tasks, lawn maintenance, community lighting, trash removal, they're all handled by the HOA. And for them, that really sounded like freedom. You know, less weekend labor, more family time. That sense of ease is one of the most powerful draws of an HOA community. HOA governed developments handle, many exterior and communal maintenance tasks. Things like landscaping, common area repairs, in colder climates, snow removal, trash services, and more. So let's take some time and break down some of the major benefits that appeal to home buyers and homeowners. So let's start off with maintenance. One of the strongest selling points is that many maintenance responsibilities shift from the homeowner to the HOA. And in many communities, the HOA contracts with, landscapers, pool maintenance, repair vendors to care for shared spaces, and sometimes, even for exterior home features. So for busy professionals, retirees or people who travel a lot, this can translate into fewer chores, fewer surprises, and a more carefree lifestyle. There are the amenities that many people couldn't afford alone. The Patel family, they're an older couple, now empty nesters. They were drawn to the same neighborhood precisely because of the amenities. They saw the pool, they saw the clubhouse, the tennis courts, the walking paths, the common garden spaces. They recognized that these features were things that individually they weren't, they'd be very expensive, but spread across a lot of homeowners, they become much more accessible. Many HOA communities offer these type of shared perks. Now, these amenities don't just add convenience, they encourage neighbor interactions, community events, and social opportunities. So let's talk about something else: aesthetic standards and uniformity. One of the unspoken promises is the visual harmony. No peeling paint, no sagging fences, no junk cars parked in the driveway, no wildly, let's say, creative lawn maintenance. The HOA enforces covenants, conditions, and restrictions, called the CC&Rs, to maintain uniform standards. And that uniformity helps preserve curb appeal, and many argue it really protects values as well. There are studies that suggest that homes in HOA communities often command a premium. One analysis found an average boost of around 4% compared to comparable non-HOA homes. So what about conflict resolution and governance. In the Patel's early experiences, when they had questions about whether their exterior lighting complied, they didn't have to go and knock on the neighbors' doors or negotiate personally. Instead, they submitted a request right to the HOA and got a ruling. HOAs often provide structured governance framework and a dispute resolution system. Moreover, in emergencies or large community decisions, the HOA board can act as a centralized managing body, which can be more efficient than everyone acting individually. So, what about hidden costs and friction? Well, let's head back over to the Rodriguez family. They were enjoying the ease when they suddenly receive a violation notice. Their front door color was not within the palette allowed under the HOA rules. They also learned that the annual HOA dues were going up. The Patel family also received a surprise, a special assessment. The community pool needed repairs, and every homeowner had to chip in additional funds beyond their regular dues. From here, friction sets in. Arguments emerge about how the strict rules some residents feel their personal autonomy is being constrained. Let's discuss what can cause these tensions. First, there could be mandatory fees and surprise assessments. Perhaps the most visible burden is cost. Every homeowner in an HOA pays periodic dues. They might be monthly, quarterly, or annually, and the level of fees varies widely based on, location, amenities, and maintenance needs. What many people don't anticipate is the possibility of special assessments. These are one-time additional fees when the HOA reserve funds are insufficient for major repairs. Things like resurfacing roads, pool construction, reconstruction, or major plumbing work. Now, these assessments, they can be burdensome, sometimes thousands of dollars, and they're mandatory for all homeowners, whether or not you personally use the amenity in question. Then there's restricted rules on personal property. The Rodriguezes quickly realized that the HOA's rules reach into many aspects of daily life. What color you can paint your exterior, what type of plants you're allowed to have, where you can park your cars, whether or not you can have pets, and in some cases restricting breeds or the number allowed, whether you can rent your home, or even how many holiday decorations you can have. For people who value creative expression or autonomy, these constraints can feel, frankly, oppressive. One homeowner's wish to install solar panels was delayed by HOA review, and another's repainting choice was rejected for being outside the HOA's approved palette. Now, one thing that most people don't consider is the risk of mismanagement. A lack of transparency in board politics. HOA boards are volunteer driven. In many cases, neighbors, not professionals, run the board. So when experience is limited or transparency is lacking, problems can arise. Deferred maintenance, unchecked spending, inconsistent rule enforcement, or inequities in service. The Patel family said that some of the people in their neighborhood felt certain board members were favoring friends or relatives. Disagreements over budget priorities, vendor contracts, or enforcement can become sources of tension. So let's talk about something else. What about liens, fines, and potentially even a foreclosure risk? When dues or fines go unpaid, HOAs often have strong legal powers. They can issue fines, place liens on a property, and in some cases, jurisdictions even foreclose to collect unpaid assessments or fees. What about how limited control and rule changes that are needed but slow in coming? So if a resident wants to change rules or amend covenants, the process can be cumbersome, requiring majority votes, long notice windows, and lots of legal processes. Some homeowners feel unable to influence decisions or that the board is unresponsive. And also what one homeowner sees as a trivial thing like a light fixture, a mailbox style, or a window covering may be strictly regulated, requiring approval that really feels bureaucratic and slow. Here's a little story about a community meeting. Tensions can run high and really rise when the HOA board calls a community meeting. In this particular meeting, the pool resurfacing assessment was estimated at $800 per homeowner. So some neighbors were complaining that they rarely use the pool. Others argued the repairs are long overdue. The Rodriguezes, they initially enthusiastic about living in the neighborhood, now felt stuck. That was a big expense. And the Patel family, they were longtime residents who advocated for full repair to protect the property values, while others in the neighborhood suggest cutting features or trimming amenities. Now, this meeting really captured the trade-offs: aesthetic, structural, financial, personal. The board faced pressure. Votes got heated, and alliances from among neighbors, well, eventually a compromise emerged. It was a phased repair plan, a modest increase in regular dues, and a tighter cap on discretionary amenities. Some homeowners were unhappy with the outcome, and they actually considered selling. Others resolved to run for the board seats in the next cycle. Well, 6 months later, both families have settled in. The Rodriguezes, they appreciate that they didn't have to repaint the community walls or hire individual landscapers. The Patel family, they really enjoy the community events at the clubhouse, and they see the neighborhood as well maintained. But both families, they remain cautious. They keep attending board meetings. They keep reviewing the financial statements and watching for rule changes. So let's summarize the pros and the cons with some insight before leaving you with some guiding questions. First, let's talk about the pros of HOA living. Lower individual burden of maintenance, the shared responsibility for common areas, exterior upkeep, and major systems. You have access to amenities, things like pools, gyms, walks, clubhouses, landscaped parks. There's the preservation of aesthetics and property values. So through the rules and standards that deter neglect and eyesores, the governance structure and conflict resolution is a formal body that addresses disputes and makes community-wide decisions. There's the shared risk of economies of scale. Major repairs or upgrades can be spread across many homeowners. Okay, so let's move on to the cons and the cautions. There's recurring fees and surprise assessments, financial obligations that go beyond mortgage, property tax, and insurance. You've got restrictive rules that really limit your autonomy, limitations on home modifications, decor, use, parking, pets, and even whether or not you can rent your property. There's the risk of mismanagement or board dysfunction. Volunteer boards may lack experience or transparency. And then there's the possibility of liens. And, there's serious consequences for unpaid dues or fines. There's reduced flexibility in decision making and changing rules. The inertia, the legal hurdles, majority voting processes. So let's talk about those questions to ask. Is an HOA right for you? So are you considering a property in HOA community, or do you want to reflect on one that you already live in? Well, here are some critical questions to guide you right through this process. First, what exactly do the HOA fees cover? Are exterior services, roads, insurance, utilities, amenities, reserve funds, landscaping, are these included? Sometimes fees are deceptively limited and major tasks require special assessments. So second, what's the financial health of the HOA? It's critical for you to review financial statements, reserve studies. You need to know how well-funded long-term repair accounts are. Check the past assessments and whether there is a history of shortfalls. Look at how restrictive the CC&Rs are. Are the rules and the architectural guidelines too much for you? Check how detailed and strict they are. painting colors, fencing, roofing, rentals. You really want to know, are solar panels allowed? Check it all out. You also want to check out the composition and the reputation of the HOA board. Are the board members active, responsive, and competent? Is there transparency and accountability? Look at the track record of enforcement. Do homeowners get preferential treatment? Are violations handled consistently? You've got to assess what your personal tolerance is for rules versus autonomy. If you value complete freedom over your property, certain HOA rules may feel stifling. And finally, can you commit to being an engaged resident? I can't stress that participating in board meetings, voting, and community leadership is so important to ensure that HOA aligns with your interests. The Rodriguezes and the Patels, though different in age and priorities, came to a shared understanding. Living in an HOA, it's a trade-off. They gain peace of mind, community features, and a well-kept environment, but surrendered some degree of autonomy. They took on, financial obligations and committed to being active participants. Hey everybody, I'm Larry Fleischman with RE/MAX of Santa Clarita. And if you're exploring a home in an HOA governed community, please don't let the glossy brochures blind you. Peel back the layers. Ask the tough questions. Attend a community meeting. Read the fine print in the CC&Rs. Only then can you decide whether that ideal image of a perfect neighborhood aligns with your values, budget, and lifestyle. If you're anywhere in Southern California, let's sit down and talk about HOAs. Buying or selling, my team and I are here to help you. And you know what? If you're watching this from outside of Southern California and you're thinking, Larry, I wish you could help me where I live. Hey, I've got some great news. Even if you're not right here in my area, I've got your back. I have a trusted network of real estate professionals all across the country. These are people that I've worked with, trained with, and personally know. These are agents who, they share my commitment to putting clients first and treating people like family. So if you need help buying or selling anywhere, just reach out. I'd be happy to connect you with someone who will care for you just like I would. If you found this interesting or helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below with your feelings on HOAs. Thanks again for watching, and remember, every home has a story. Let's write yours together. I'll see you in the next video. Stay classy, SoCal, and remember, for all things real estate, sell or buy, Larry's your guy.